সাবস্ক্রাইব করুন চ্যানেলটিকে, এরপর যে বেল অপশন আসবে এটাতে ক্লিক করে অল অপশনে সেট করে রাখুন পরবর্তী নতুন ভিডিও দেখার জন্য।
Please. Please take a seat, Mr. Shukla. Good afternoon. So, Mr. Shukla, you have qualified in the preliminaries and the mains. What were your subjects in the main?
Ma'am, my main option in mains was political science and international relations.
Okay. But you are an engineer.
Yes, ma'am.
So, why did you select political science and international relations given your BENGALI background?
Ma'am, this year is my 4th attempt at this examination, and I had given my previous 2 mains with chemistry as my optional. However, the subject I wasn't performing that well in the subject, so I had to choose a subject wherein I could cover a lot within a less time. And since the syllabus of political science overlaps a lot with the general studies paper, so I had to go for this subject.
What have you preferred? What was your preference of services?
Ma'am, I put Indian Administrative Services as my first preference, and my second preference is Indian Police Services, and followed by Indian Foreign Services. IRS Customs and Central Excise stands at 4th, and IRS IT stands at 5th, and Indian Audit Account Services stands at 6th.
That will. Question that I'd like to ask you. This is your 4th attempt. You are an engineer from BENGALI. Why do you want to join the Indian Administrative Service?
Ma'am, there are 2 main reasons why I want to join the Indian Administrative Services. One is to me, and the other is because of the nature of the job.
Yes, tell us the nature of the job.
The nature of the job is such that it gives an opportunity for a person to diversify in various fields. One can work in education, in healthcare, in forests, and in rural development. He can, in the initial phases, he works as someone who implements policies, and the later part of his life, he works as someone who formulates policies. So this is a diversity that probably no other job in India offers. And on a personal front, I have stayed in GYANI for 4 years, and coming from Kolkata, which is a metropolitan city, I have seen 2 Indias, a very distinct India in that place. So this has actually made me understand that becoming an IAS officer, I can be afforded with many more avenues to create an impact, social impact. So this is my reason.
Okay, I was looking at your interests. You have apparently prepared a research paper on applications of 5S for workplace performance improvement. Just very briefly, what were your recommendations for workplace improvement?
Based on my research paper,
Yes.
which was based on a case study.
Yes. Just tell us the conclusions.
The key highlights of my research study was involved that workplace improvement starts with the involvement of the team members themselves. It isn't an alien process, it's a process that works on the work floor itself. Second important thing is that by various minor changes in the setup, we are able to generate extended income from the things that were not required. For example, the workplace improvement, we managed to remove the old tires, and we managed to sell it in the open market, which actually gave the team where we were conducting this experiment some additional income, which they could actually use it in the future process. And the third most important output from this was a scalable model which could be applied into any setup, from government offices to private rooms. I tried to apply it a part in my hostel room. So this is universal thing that could be.
Now, you were an elected student representative in the union, students' union.
Yes.
You are heading a public sector organization. You qualified, and you are heading a public sector undertaking. You want to bring about workplace improvement based on your earlier knowledge, based on what experience has taught you, based on what you think is correct. The problem is with the trade unions. They decide to snowball every move you make. They are even belligerent. They are even militant. You want the improvement, but with your background as a union leader or student union leader, how would you overcome this?
Can I get a couple of seconds to think about it?
I've taken the questions from your own background. You talk about workplace improvement, you're talking about your union representation. So the question is, if as the head of a PSU, you're looking at workplace improvement and the union snowballs it, which incarnation of yours will dominate?
Ma'am, the menace of union in India has been pronounced for past couple of years, for past couple of decades, to be very honest. Under this scenario, I would actually take a role of a transactional leader. As a transactional leader, there will be two aspects to my activity. The first aspect would be looking at legitimate demands of the union. Like, it's not always that the unions are on the wrong page.
Okay.
First of all, I'll be setting up an inquiry and we have an inquiry team which would actually also include the members of the administration, members of the union, members of the staff, and we'll be conducting an inquiry about the feasibility of demands. We'll be working on it, we'll be thinking about how much of it can be implemented or how much about its feasibility. It will be a feasibility study. Now, on the other hand, any action which is detrimental to the interests of the company or against the rules of the company or against company discipline in general would be dealt with very strongly. So this is my course of action.
Yes.
When you studied international relations, did you do theoretical international relations?
So,
Realism, idealism, constructivism?
to a fair extent, I did a theoretical study, but it was mostly confined to the levels of the examinations.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll ask a different question. India has not signed a free trade agreement with the country now for over 10 years. Suddenly, we have signed in quick succession one with the United Arab Emirates, one with Australia, one with Mauritius, and we are about to sign an early harvest with Great Britain, and we are planning with Taiwan, Israel, and a couple of others next in European Union next year. Why do you think the government has had this huge shift in trade policy?
So I'm not very entirely sure, but if allowed to make a guess, I could make an. So I believe that the change in the government policy is stemming from the realism that we are actually experiencing in international politics. We see the countries, given the fact that the COVID pandemic and the current Russia-Ukraine crisis has disrupted supply chains globally. And we feel that India, on its way of Atmanirbharta, needs to have significant exchanges, especially in the field of trade with other nations as well. So I think the time is opportune now as the world looks at India as an important player of global politics, global geopolitics, to take shape. And trade today stands as a major role, as a major element of international connectivity, of international diplomacy. And this is why I feel that the recent focus on trade is an important part of India consolidating its international relations.
Another question which is on Pakistan. Now, 10, even 15 years ago, Pakistan was an overriding obsession with us in foreign policy. Literally everything revolved around Pakistan. Today, you can literally go for months without the foreign ministry mentioning the word Pakistan ever. I mean, no other reference to it at all. Why do you think that's changed?
Sir, I believe there are two major causes that have led to the change of the global scenario with respect to India and Pakistan. One is about India. About India, our diplomatic profile, our role in the international arena has increased by leaps and bounds. Today we are not the same India that the world has viewed us, let's say 10 years ago. Today we are seen as a country that is the hope for the future. Today we are seen as a country as a major geopolitical player in the global geopolitical arena. So India actually has chosen to diversify its areas rather than focusing on a very narrow and restrictive on a west neighbor. And about Pakistan, there's a reason why the India-Pakistan narrative has simmered down a bit. It is about Pakistan as well. Pakistan was very much backed by United States for a very long period of time, so it had a significant global clout. However, within the couple of years, followed by the internal crisis in Pakistan and the loss of American support, America moving towards India, leaning a bit towards India, we see that Pakistan is losing this edge in the international arena. So this voice that Pakistan had in the international affairs is simmering down a bit, and this has actually led to a transformation of India's interest from Pakistan to other places like the Middle East, the Far East, and Europe, LATAM. Latin America. So,
But Pakistan is now backed by China, which is in many ways the other superpower. So why would necessarily the loss of the US and the replacement of that with China, why would that necessarily be a matter of great loss to Pakistan? China, in fact, is right next to us. It's much more able to put pressure on us.
so Pakistan does enjoy a very strong support of China. However, at the same time, the geopolitical clout that US had, the US hegemony, the US influence on global affairs is not the same as the Chinese influence. I agree with you, I absolutely agree with you, sir, that China has been the savior of Pakistan and from many times. But at the same time, it does not actually provide that level of insurance that America provides in the international sphere. So this is probably one of the reasons. I am not aware about any other reason, but I'll make sure to read about it.
Okay, one last question. Now, India used to be a great proponent of non-alignment, but you may have noticed Prime Minister Modi has not attended a single non-aligned summit since he has become Prime Minister. We now use the phrase strategic autonomy to describe the broad basis of our foreign policy. What, in your sense, is the difference between non-alignment and strategic autonomy?
So non-alignment has been a part of our India's foreign policy for a very long period of time. However, with the newfound power that influence that India has in the global arena, we have moved from a non-alignment to an issue-based alignment, where actually we are putting our points, putting our views on basis of what our stand is, what national interest is, and not necessarily what the time demands of us. So I think this is the major reason why this shift has been visible.
So whether the argument that you're making is that non-alignment is not necessarily interest-based?
I'm sorry, sir, I do not actually intend to say that. I believe that non-alignment has been in focus of India's interest. However, we are diversifying it. We are not just taking it with a position of non-alignment. We are actually aligning, but on issues that concern our interests more.
Thank you.
You like watching football. What was this hand of God goal?
So, hand of God goal is a controversial yet the most famous goal scored in the football history. It was in the 1986 World Cup semi-final by Diego Maradona against 86 World Cup semi-final by Diego Maradona against England, wherein he actually jumped and he actually used his hand to guide the ball, which was actually going over his head. So this is the infamous goal.
There was another goal. It's called the goal of century. You know about that?
So, if I may be allowed to guess, was it in the same match, the second goal that Maradona scored against England when we dribbled for our past 8 players and the goalkeeper? And
Your guess is right. It's in the same match for the next goal.